All right, folks, I know you're all getting in, but if you could please do me all a favor, and I know you're trying to get to your seats, but if you can try to do so quietly so that you can actually hear these kids performing. They put a lot of work into this, so I want to make sure everyone has a chance to enjoy. So take it away, guys. Good job, guys. So I'm sorry to disappoint you all, but that is the closest you are ever going to get me to sing for all of you. So let's get that out of the way now. But I am going to ask you all if you can stand, and we're going to welcome an Enfield High School senior, Cole Wood, as he leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I ask everyone to please remain standing for the choir's rendition of America the Beautiful.
Thank you, guys, and please, everyone, please join me in thanking these kids again who gave up the last few days of their summer. Thank you. And also, we have to thank all their teachers who literally gave up their last few days of their summer to be here to help these kids prepare for today. So I'd like to thank Richard Sullivan, Kim Jakes, Melissa Clark, Amanda Urquhart, Marilyn Goodnight, and of course, Ralph Patterson. Those of you who may remember, Ralph actually retired this year. And as you can see, this is how he chose to spend his retirement. So even though you retire, you're never really gone from the Enfield Public Schools. So thank you again, Mr. Patterson. These kids began working together last Friday, and they've once again mastered several pieces of music to perform for you today, so I thank you. I also want to give a big thank you to Chef Josh and our future Chefs of America. I'm going to ask him to come down here really quick. Come on down, guys. You can go. Don't be shy. Good job. So, all the breakfast that was prepared for you guys this morning was actually all done by these kids. So Chef Josh and his team did an amazing job. And I didn't want to embarrass them too much, but I wanted to take the opportunity so they can show off their fancy new uniforms. So thank you guys again. Thank you for everything you've done. I appreciate it. You're off the hook now. You guys can go. Good job, guys. Thank you. Good job, buddy. I also want to take the opportunity to thank the Enfield Board of Education for their support, not just this year, but for many years past. And everyone has to remember that these people are volunteers, and they give a lot of their personal time to help support the district, and I want to thank them for that. I also want to take the opportunity to thank our town officials. I want to thank our town manager, Brian Schatkowski, as well as our town council for all the support that they've given us over the past year. And I also have a message for those of you who actually work here at Enfield High School. And the message is pretty simple. You're welcome. For those of you who work here, I got them out of here for you. No need to thank me now. But all kidding aside, those of you who don't know, we've got a new deputy superintendent. That's Andy Longy. He's the former principal of Enfield High. I didn't tell you to stand yet. I'm kidding. In all seriousness, Andy's been a tremendous partner in just the 2 short months that we've been working together, and I'm looking forward to many years of Andy and I helping to lead the district and most importantly working with all of you. So very lucky to have him. I thank him. Finally, good morning to everyone. For those of you who don't know, my name is Chris Trezick, and 60 days ago I became your superintendent. If you draw your attention to the poster on the left, I don't know if many of you had an opportunity to see that either coming in or maybe on social media, but I wanted to bring to your attention exactly what that is. Over the summer, we actually partnered with our friends at Enfield Youth Services to get involved in a school attendance campaign. And I can't take credit for the idea. One of our social workers over at Youth Services with the town was at a conference over the summer, and she asked me took a picture down in Atlanta, and there was pictures all over the city of Atlanta promoting the first day of school, and she took a picture and sent it to me and said, "Is this something that you would endorse?" And I said, "Absolutely." Obviously, our kids can't learn, our kids can't achieve anything if they're not here, and there's a real strong campaign on behalf of all of us to get kids and cut down on absenteeism. So I thought it was a good idea. So you're going to see these over the next week, either in all of our buildings, they're in all of our town buildings. They're also have been placed in local businesses that have agreed to partner with us. But in all honesty, that was the first time I ever had a hashtag, so I thought it was pretty cool. So I wanted to share all that with you. What are we going to do today? And that starts with a promise that I made. I promised basically everyone I've spoken to leading up to this morning that I was going to try to keep this morning to no more than an hour. Now, I know that all of you have no interest in hearing me speak for any more than an hour. And in all honesty, I can't stand the sound of my own voice for any longer than that. So I'm going to do everything I can to keep us out of here within an hour. I'm going to ask for your patience that I'm new at this. I got a clock going, but I'm going to do the best I can to get you out. But outside of the selfish reasons of not wanting to talk for that long, there's a couple of reasons why I wanted to make sure we got you guys out of here as quickly as we could this morning. First off is this room. Those of you who don't know, this is actually the first official district event we've ever had in this beautiful auditorium. And for those of you who haven't had a chance to come to this building has really become the centerpiece for our community. This building goes to show that when people put their differences aside and they actually try to put something together that's in the best interest of not just the community, but more importantly for us, our kids, that really good things can happen. And this is a building that we should all be very proud of. This is a building I know the town is also very proud of. So I want to give you all an opportunity to see it. I know some of you may not have had the opportunity to be here because you don't work here. So we're going to open the building up once we're done. I encourage everybody to walk around, get a chance to see it for the first time. Hopefully it's not your first time, and hopefully it won't be your last. But just as important, I know a lot of you who don't work here, I want to give you an opportunity to see what you're preparing our kids for, because every kid in town is going to come through this building. So I want to give you that chance. And lastly, I realize that there are a lot of changes in the district lately, which I'll talk about in a moment, but one of the big changes is a lot of you in this room all have new homes. So I want to give you all the opportunity not just to get to your new home, but I know that traditionally, this is the day that most of you cherish. I know you'll have staff meetings later on today, and then the next 2 days you're in professional development, but I've been here long enough to know that teachers can't wait for this day and wait for the meetings to get over so they can get back in their rooms and get ready for the start of the year. So I want to give you a chance to get back to your buildings before lunch. I've asked all your principals, we typically will have your faculty meetings after lunch to try to have them beforehand, so that way when you're dismissed at lunch, the rest of the day is yours so you can get ready to start tomorrow. Okay. I didn't do that for an applause, but thanks. So I mentioned there's been a lot of changes in the district. Obviously, one of the big changes is you're stuck with Andy and I for the foreseeable future. But one of the other things I'm going to ask for throughout today and throughout the year is your patience as you bear with us. Though we've been around, we are kind of new at this, and nobody's perfect, so we're going to do the best we can, but our door is always open if we're not doing something right. Another big change is what I referenced before. With the reorganization of our elementary schools and creating that true sister school concept. One of the big factors of that was the consolidation of Nathan Hale. And I know how difficult it's been for a lot of you. I know how difficult moving and packing, and some of you, this isn't the first time you've moved. I understand how challenging that can be, but I do appreciate everybody for their dedication to make sure that we're ready for day one, and then when the kids get here, however crazy the summer has been, everybody will put that behind us and do what's in the best interest of the kids that walk through that door. I kind of like the picture. I don't know if you could see it from where you are, but that pretty much epitomizes what a lot of you, and us included, have dealt with all summer, just putting stuff in boxes. But the good news is misery loves company. And those of you who don't know, we actually moved ourselves this past summer. So we've moved from the Barnard Administration Wing, and central office is now located over at Alcorn. So I literally feel your pain, I understand, but I need to take this opportunity as well to thank all the people at central office. I know that we've asked you to essentially live out of a suitcase for the last 2 months. I know that it hasn't been challenging. I appreciate I can't say you haven't complained, but I appreciate you not trying to verbally kill me every time we walked in and something wasn't right. And I know we upset everybody's lives, but I really do appreciate everything that you guys did, so I thank you for that. But one of the biggest changes that I'm most excited about, and that we all should be excited about, is that in this room today, I'm very proud to announce that we have 53 new teachers joining the Enfield Public Schools. That you can clap for. And as much as I would like to embarrass each and every one of you and mention you by name, I can't do that since it's such a large group, but that's just teachers alone. We also have a lot of new staff members joining us. We have administrators, clerical staff. There's a lot of new faces in this room. And though it may be scary for you guys right now, this is very exciting for us. So what I'd like to do is ask anyone who's new to the district, and try to not make this like a wedding, if you could just please stand up and get recognized. Thank you all. That's your official welcome to the Enfield Public Schools. I thank you all for wanting to be here, and we all look forward to many, many years working together with you. What you're going to see up on the screen is something that a lot of you who have been here are familiar with, and that's a set of district goals that we have every year. And every year we put forth a vision and a mission as to what we want to accomplish from year to year. I'm not going to read them all to you. I know we've done that in the past, but most of you are familiar with them. But there's a couple of talking points that I want to draw upon from what we accomplished last year. And believe it or not, they're not prescriptive in what's up on the screen. This process has actually begun to lead some organic changes that came from the grassroots on things that we can produce to help kids in programs and help kids with things that they would benefit from. And though we've done a lot, and I don't want to minimize the work that a lot of you have done, there's two things in particular I wanted to highlight for you this morning. One is something that actually happens here in this building, and that's called Wednesday Night School. If you're not familiar with Wednesday Night School, essentially what it is it's an alternative to suspension for kids that may need it. So in lieu of sitting in in-school suspension all day, these kids have to come back and commit to come Wednesday night after school and partake in this program in lieu of going through that suspension process. As great as that is, the greatest accomplishment through that is that gives those kids an opportunity to connect with an adult, that they otherwise may have not had the chance to do that. This program didn't start with me or anyone at central office. This was a pretty generic set of goals that took you guys as teachers in this building, the administrators that you work with, and tried to come up with something tangible that actually helps kids. So that's why this process is important. There's something else you're going to hear a lot about, especially in the next couple of days, is the district's commitment to the PBIS process. That came from this as well. We recognized that we've got challenges with kids coming in every day. So one of the things that we've had discussions about, but more importantly, we listened to the voices in this room, was what can we do to address that? So I'm also very proud to announce, if you're unaware, that we now employ 6 full-time PBIS coaches or behavioral analysts, 1 for each of our elementary schools. You can applaud for that. Just remember, if I go over an hour, it's because you guys kept clapping. I didn't plan that when we did this. So I'm also very proud to announce that for the first time, we actually have a dedicated counselor in each of our elementary schools. There's no more sharing. You keep eating your time. And I apologize. I probably should have thanked my allergies before I came in here today because it's going to kick my voice out in any minute, so I'll try to keep drinking water to plow through this. The last thing, through this whole process and the district's commitment to PBIS, that every teacher in the district is now going to be trained in PBIS. So this initiative, or these things I was talking about, they weren't just a result of the district goals. These were things that we heard from you. We heard from people who were actually in the classrooms and who recognize the challenges that our kids are having, and we tried to put our head together to come up with the best solution to address some of these challenges. Now, you may ask, that says last year's goals on it, and you're right. Doesn't mean we're done. Doesn't mean we're not having goals going forward. But one of the questions I asked our administrative team last year was, what do we need to change? What can we fix with this process? And more importantly, is the work done? And the answer is no. The work's never done. But we're really starting to see tangible results from this, and the last thing we want to do is take any steps back further. So this year's goals, though it says last year, we are going to continue with these goals. We've tweaked the wording a little bit on it, and we'll have that available for everyone to see. But the goals and the mission of the district aren't going to change. So I'm not going to read them all to you, but I wanted you to at least know we're starting to get on the right path, and the work's going to continue moving forward. As I said, PBIS training and behavioral specialists weren't just an idea that we came up with at central office. It was feedback directly from you guys. I had a number of you in recent years, some of which who've had 20-plus years experience in a classroom, approach me with some pretty real concerns. And they were real concerns not just about the increase in the behaviors that our kids were coming in with, but more importantly, the fact that you were all seeing these behaviors in our youngest kids. So I believe strongly that we have a responsibility to educate the whole child. We all know kids are coming into school with more complex issues that we've never seen. Now, there are people who will argue that it's not our job. But we all know that these youngsters are coming in on Tuesday, and they're coming back to school every single day, whether it's our job or not. So I could never look a 5-year-old in the face and tell that child, hey, you don't get as much support at home as you need, so you're kind of out of luck. I would never do that, and more importantly, I know that none of you would ever do that. So we may need to change. We need to change the way we direct instruction. We need to recognize and support the behavioral needs of our students and our families. But at the same time, we need to support you as you all continue to do what's best for your kids in your classroom every day. So that's a priority for us going forward. And that's something that's ongoing, but it's something that you've got the full support of the whole district going ahead. This is just a reminder. Some of you may know what it is. Some of you who are new, since there's so many of you, you may not. This is the district's what we refer to as the Y card. And in a nutshell, what this is it defines who we are. There's a mission, there's a vision, there's a spirit. And we're going to talk a little bit about this later, but I wanted to just put it up as a reminder that it's out there. I keep it on my desk, it's on our websites, it's in all of our buildings, but it helps keep some perspective as to why we're here. And we're going to talk a little bit about perspective in a moment. But before we do, all of you are aware that trying to do anything difficult is nearly impossible if you try to do it alone. We all need partners. Now, I've been pretty lucky over the last 8 to 10 years or so to have a partner that I've had a chance to work with when it came to dealing with our largest employee group, which is you, the Enfield teachers. I would be lying to you if I told you that we always agreed. I'd be lying if I said we always saw eye to eye, but the one thing I can say truthfully is that we always had an agreement that we would remain respectful, and we'd be open and honest with each other, and that we would always keep it as respectful as we could. And we both kept that promise. And that promise was never more evident than exactly a year ago from today. You see, we knew that we were heading into contract negotiations, and we all had the smarts to realize that things didn't look so good when it came to the fiscal picture of what was happening with the state of Connecticut. So instead of arguing and instead of fighting with each other about it, we decided that we were going to sit in a room and talk like adults and try to see if we can both have a hand in solving this problem together. Now, I understand nothing's perfect, and any negotiator will tell you that if both sides walk away a little unhappy, then it's probably a good deal. But the end result of that was the contract that last year, most of you and on the Board of Education side passed unanimously. And that wasn't done without the leadership of this gentleman. It also, I mentioned earlier, that we have 53 new teachers in this building, in this room. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because we did the work prior to in order to make sure we are in a better position, and especially in a day and age where I'm sure you all have colleagues who work in other towns where people are losing teachers. It's pretty unique that we're in a situation to welcome 53 new staff members. So I realize that I probably just jinxed him ever getting reelected by you guys, but you're all lucky to have him as your president, and we're certainly lucky to have him as a humble leader. So I'd like to welcome your president of the Enfield Teachers Association, Todd Kuchar. Go to this side.
Wow, I didn't expect that. That was nice. All right. I actually was going to start off with my singing joke, so that's not going to work since Chris took it. But as an association, we often deal with items that are typically thought of as negative in nature. Now, we're all here for a convocation. Everything that I say today will be entirely positive. All right. So everybody, welcome to the 2017-2018 school year. Before I begin, I'd like to introduce this year's ETA Executive Board. If you can kindly hold your applause until all the names have been read, that would be greatly appreciated. Executive Vice President, Jason Bouchard. Secondary Vice President, Joanne Cardell. Elementary Vice President, Brian Olson. Middle School Vice President, Mary DeRozier. Treasurer, Andrew DePere. Secretary, Kim Sweeney. Membership Chair and PR&R Chair, Gray Wanzer. Community Relations Chair, Emily Hulovich. Chief Organizer, Michelle Wilcox. Elementary Rep from the floor, Karen Slattery. And secondary rep from the floor, Tony Allegro. Ladies and gentlemen, that is your current ETA Executive Board. $7,723. 7,723 are the total number of years that teachers in this room have devoted to teaching in the town of Enfield. Please stand up if you live in Enfield or if you went through the Enfield public school system. If you look around, that's pretty impressive. What Enfield has done well is bring back homegrown talent. You can have a seat. Today, we welcome 53 new teachers to the Enfield public school system. For those teachers, welcome to Enfield and to the ETA. I have taught, this is my 24th year, all the years I've taught at the secondary level. One thing that I've learned from that position is that elementary teachers have the most difficult job in the system. Elementary teachers teach more subjects, they collect way more data, you're seldom without students, and your schedule makes the practice of teaching harder than at any level. The way I look at it is a lot of times elementary teachers will come to the secondary level. It's very few do you find secondary teachers go to the elementary level. Very few. And when an elementary teacher comes to the secondary level and you ask them the difference, they usually won't say anything because they know that the secondary level is substantially different than the elementary level. Now, Chris Drezek was cognizant of the elementary day, so he put in for those STEAM positions which benefit all students. But basically, one of the main impetus behind that was it gave additional prep time for the elementary teachers. Because not only do elementary teachers have a very difficult day, they also have historically had the least amount of prep time as well. So I would like to thank all the teachers in this room. However, I'd like to especially thank all the elementary school teachers. I hope everybody had an enjoyable summer. I had two main goals. That was to lose about 5 pounds and to spend less money. As I stand in front of you today, I think I'm about 10 pounds heavier, and my bank account is substantially smaller. The good thing is, thank God we're getting paid on Friday. The only one that will be disappointed will be my credit card companies. All right, today, in the brief time I have this morning, I'd like to talk about 3 things. That's teaching, happiness, and the future. Teaching. At one point in our lives, we made a decision to become teachers. It may be because your parents were a teacher, or maybe a teacher inspired you to become a teacher. Or maybe you realize that dealing with children has its challenges, but it is far better than dealing with adults all day. Whatever the reason you decided to become a teacher, students remember you as a teacher. They remember your sense of humor, your kindness, your passion, your love of teaching. Sadly, students seldom remember specific units or lessons that you taught them. However, they remember you. Here is a few students that I know will remember us. I know a student who was a die-hard Red Sox fan who never attended a game at Fenway. He will remember the time that a group of teachers got together to buy him and his father a ticket, a restaurant gift card, money for tolls, and money for souvenirs. I know a student who sustained himself on nothing but plain Lay's potato chips and vanilla ice cream, was given repeated opportunities within the school day to try new foods, and that student now has a wealth of new dietary options that he can now eat. I know a student who was given a separate graduation ceremony in the building with all the pomp and circumstances of a regular graduation, but could not attend the regular ceremony because the ceremony would provide too much stimuli for her. I know students who were given yearbooks who could not afford them. I know a student who was given takeout every single night. The teacher actually ordered the takeout, brought it to the student because the parent was incapacitated in the hospital. Teaching is, in fact, the best profession in the world, and it is your knowledge of the curriculum and your dedication to the students' well-being that make you so wonderful and memorable to the students that you teach. Happiness. As we often find out, life is rather fragile. In the last few weeks, we lost 2 significant administrators in the Enfield Public School system. We sadly lost Carmen Nucio and Bill O'Brien. If you just look at what's happening in Texas, you can find out how fragile life actually is. Because life is fragile, we need to pursue a path that makes you happy. As for most of us, including myself, happiness comes from spending time with your family. Treasure that time. Besides family, my happiness comes from attending sporting events, attending plays, trying new restaurants, taking family vacations that I clearly cannot afford, being a teacher, and being a member of the ETA. Pursue a path that makes you happy. Also, besides pursuing happiness, let's continue to bring fun into the classroom. I have 2 quick stories for you. When I was a second-year teacher, I had one of those classes in which you couldn't wait until June was going to arrive. Well, that was a class that my administrator actually wanted to observe, of course. As I was teaching that class, under my classroom door, a strip of paper surfaced. The actual strip of paper went from the door all the way to the other side of the room. The paper was approximately 4 inches wide and 30 feet long. On that paper was written the words, "Kuchar's Great White Python." At first, I did not know how to react to this rather odd occurrence, especially as I was being observed. But my often off-task students and I decided to investigate, and we had a good laugh. Because I was successful at getting my class back on task, the observation went well. I also remember a science teacher who had this plant in his classroom that was about to die. Unbeknownst to him, another teacher had the exact same plant in his classroom. So one day, during lunch, We convinced the teacher with the almost dead plant that pencil shavings placed in the soil would bring his plant back to life. Well, after a few days of trying this, the plants were switched, and lo and behold, the teacher thought the plant came back to life from the pencil shavings. We had this teacher so convinced that he brought pencil shavings home to put in his plants at his home. Now, I am not telling you to sabotage your colleagues' observation. I'm not telling you to mess with your colleagues by convincing them things that clearly are not true. But what I am saying is, let's not always be serious. Let's try to have some fun. The future. I love working for this union. My father was a big Teamsters man. He was Local 559, and I'm very proud to follow my father's footsteps. The future of the ETA is bright. I am so thrilled to have Chris Drezick and Andy Longi at central office. I've had the privilege of working with Chris for years as chair of PR&R and as president, and working with Andy with the new high school schedule. As Chris said, we may not always agree, but we always understood each other's positions, and we have always remained respectful throughout the entire process. Central office staff, in particular John Kosha, has been supportive of teachers. During the summer, we were able to help out a couple of teachers with some serious medical issues, but of course, none of these can be shared in any great detail. I just want you to know that there is far more kindness going on than you may be aware of. However, we do have some challenges ahead. We have a Supreme Court case that will negatively affect unions across the nation, including our own. We are on the verge of a new political season, and the state budget still has not been passed in Hartford. However, I'm optimistic that we will overcome these challenges and move forward as an association. This year, the ETA will be finalizing a district-wide assault plan. We will be having a 504 and a retirement workshop this year as well. We will continue to have quarterly audits of our finances. We will be implementing data in prep committees shortly, and we will continue to honor retiring teachers like we did last year. We will also be having rep-style meetings with Chris so that he can hear from you personally and to hopefully have meetings that offer solutions to our challenges. Some of our days as teachers will be difficult days. We may feel that students are not listening and that we are struggling to make a difference. These days will happen from time to time. However, you will have students who will come back to see you, or they will write to you telling you how much of a difference you made in their lives. Please don't ever forget that what you do does make a difference. Please remember that you are, in fact, in the best profession in the world. Every year, we get to start new. Let's make this new year the best year ever. Also, remember that every child is important. Teach, guide, and communicate with every student like he or she is your own child. If you do this every day, you'll be making a difference, and you will not be led astray. Have a wonderful school year. Thank you for devoting your education and your exceptional talent to the students of Enfield. You are what makes Enfield a great place to live and to learn. Thank you.
Good job. I had no idea what he was going to say, so he did steal some of my thunder, but let's get to the one speech that we're all look forward to hearing every single year. Now you can clap. But before I bring her up here, I want to share with you something that happened about a week ago. I was in Michelle Middleton's new, I can't call it an office, it's like a cubicle at best. And there was someone else in Michelle's office sitting at her desk who I won't name to embarrass them. So as I was having a conversation with these two people, that on Michelle's screen was the district website, and the banner that came across had this person's picture on it as the Teacher of the Year. And I made a comment like, I wonder if she's going to be okay speaking today. And before I had a chance to say anything else, the person that wasn't Michelle jumped on me and said, she can do it. She's perfect. She can do anything. And she's right, and I couldn't agree more. So I just wanted to let everyone here know that I did give her the option of not speaking today, but I told her that if she chose not to, I'd never let her live it down. So apparently, facing all of you this morning is a lot easier than her having to deal with me. So I'm pleased to welcome the Enfield Teacher of the Year, Andrea Tarbach.
Good morning and welcome back to the start of the 2017 school year. I'm completely humbled to be standing in front of all of you today. With the start of the school year, there are a million things that I know everybody else would rather be doing than listening to me talk. Plus, with my absolute fear of speaking in front of all of you today, I'm going to keep this short. Growing up, I was fortunate enough to attend the Enfield Public School System. My school career was a memorable experience that encouraged me to become a teacher. Throughout my schooling, I had influential teachers who believed in me and pushed me to accomplish everything that I could. I wanted to give children the same positive school experience that I was provided with. So upon graduation, I was well prepared to go off to college and pursue my dream of teaching. While completing my studies, I was blessed to have a student teaching experience that was nothing less than remarkable right here in Enfield. Not only did I have one amazing mentor teacher, but I was lucky enough to have two of them, Amy Romano and Sherry Winans. Thus, this opportunity solidified my decision of becoming a teacher. The excitement they brought to teaching, the passion they shared with their students, and the confidence they instilled in me is something that I carry into my teaching every day. Part of a letter that Amy wrote to me when I received a job teaching in Enfield stated, "Remember to treat every lesson, every day, with as much importance as the last one you taught. You will be touching a lot of lives and making a difference." To this day, this is still how I approach my teaching. I am reminded of this every year when my students and I are studying the book Because of Winn-Dixie. We connect with the different characters, their traits, and their stories. Every character is their own person with his or her own story to tell, but in the end, all the stories come together and inspire the reader. This is just like our classrooms. Every child who enters the classroom has his or her own story to tell, something unique to share with the whole classroom community and inspire everyone else within. As educators, it's our responsibility to learn those stories, make connections, and find a way to reach each and every student. A quote by George Evans says it all. Every student can learn, just not on the same day or in the same way. We must empower students to realize their importance, instill hope, and let them know that they have a caring teacher beside them who believes in them. As we all know, education in the art of teaching is constantly changing to accommodate the variety of learners. As educators, we need to be willing to be flexible and adapt to what the learners in our classes need to be successful. You might be thinking, of course, we all do this as educators. Well, the truth is, we don't. At times, we often become comfortable and set in our own ways, and even scared of change. If we want children to become effective lifelong learners, then we need to be the same. We must stay up to date with the new initiatives, the continuous changing of our curriculum, and the ongoing needs of the students. We need to constantly strive to be better. We have to learn that it is okay to not be perfect. It's okay for things to be messy. We are always telling students that mistakes are proof we are trying. This goes for us as well. Both students and us as educators need to take risks, get out of our comfort zones, and see the endless possibilities the world has to offer. It starts at home and within the classroom, but it's so much more than that. The lessons that are learned stick with the children, drive the rest of their education, and their lives after school as well. So, how should you want to be remembered as an educator? You should want former students to say, "My teacher was creative, inspiring, and helped me grow by showing me that it takes time, hard work, and even failure. It's about not giving up and trying my best." With that being said, I want to leave you with a quote that motivates me, that I try to embed within my students, and that I hope encourages you this year. The great Babe Ruth once said, "Never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game." Challenge yourself this year, try something new, take a risk, make mistakes, be messy. Thank you.
You're great. See, that wasn't so bad, right? The good news for you is you're done. I still have to finish this thing out, so this is where I will try to be brief. As I started to think about what I wanted my message to all of you today, now that we're trying to figure out how we move forward and what we're going to do to try to move this district ahead, I have to be honest, I struggled. I kept trying to think of what I wanted to stand up and say to all you guys here today. But what I kept going back to was why I'm here. What do I do this for? And in a minute, I'm going to ask something of all of you So I think it's only fair that I'm willing to do the same for myself. And I also think it's important that just this once, and I promise just this once, as I'm addressing you as your superintendent for the first time, that you all know why I'm here and why I do this. And my story is not very different than all of yours. It may have a little different twists and turns that I'll try to be brief. When I was growing up, as you heard Andrea talk about and you heard Todd talk about, is we all have moments that help shape what we want to do with our lives. I'll be the first to admit, as a kid, I wasn't always the greatest student, but I was good enough, but I was motivated not by academic excellence. I had a different motivation that some of you won't be surprised about, that my motivation was playing sports, was being involved in athletics. So I knew what I needed to do, not just to continue to play, but where the schools that I wanted to go to, the grades that I know I needed to have, and what I was able to do going forward. And I was on my way, and unfortunately for me, about 3 weeks before I started my senior year, I had a pretty dramatic event happen in my life. My father passed away unexpectedly. I'm not looking for pity. But obviously for any kid to have to deal with that is tough. It was particularly tough for me because I hadn't done much by far as way as the college process. You know, talking to coaches and talking to admission counselors, I was lucky that my dad handled all that stuff. And not in an overbearing, like weird Tiger Woods dad kind of way. It was really more just, he took care of the adult stuff so I can handle worrying about what I needed to worry about. And after this happened, your mind starts to do kind of weird things. And those of you who work at the high school know that some crazy things happen in the mind of a 17-year-old boy, and I certainly was no exception. But the thing that I kept going back to was, why am I doing this? Is it worth it? You know, though I wasn't getting the best grades I probably could have, I was still working pretty hard. I was practicing pretty hard. And I had friends that certainly weren't doing that, and they were off having the time of their lives. So I had to ask myself the question, do I want to continue doing this? And the answer I came up with was no. Like, it's not worth it to me. I'm 17. I want to have some fun. I don't want to have to waste my last year in high school worrying about my grades, worrying about getting into the schools that I want to get into. But I was smart enough at the time to realize that I had the best excuse in the world. Now, let me preface this. I was very lucky to have a support system at home, family, friends that helped us out. But I knew that for 7 hours a day, I probably wasn't going to get watched all that close. And if I was, I mean, realistically, who would blame me? No one's going to call me out for messing up a little bit because of what I went through. So I made up my mind. That's what I was doing. And everything changed on the first day of school my senior year. I got into school, I walked in the building, I knew that was it. I'm going to have some fun, I'm going to go see my friends, I'm going to have some fun, I'm probably not going to stay. And I got through homeroom and everything changed after that. As my classmates were walking out of homeroom to go to first period, which I at that point was already committed to, no way I was going to first period. 3 of my teachers from my junior year walked into my homeroom. And as they walked in, they sat me down, they said, sit down, we want to have a conversation with you. And they started off with what you would expect. They were sorry to hear what happened. They were offering their condolences for me and offering support that if I needed anything, there was going to be some tough times coming ahead, come down to one of our offices, we'll get you a pass. If you need to talk, we'll always be there. And I appreciated that. It was nice to know that somebody cared. It didn't change my mind, but it was good to know that I had some support in the room. Until they got up to leave. And one of my teachers, who in a way that only she could, looked me in the eye and said, I know what you're thinking, and it's not going to happen. So whatever excuse you think you have in your head to screw up your life, it's not happening on our watch. So we're watching. If you get out of line, we're going to put you back in. We'll be here to support you if you need to, but don't think you're going to let this ruin your life. Now shut up and get to class. And that's how the conversation ended. Needless to say, as I walked out, the first thing that came to my mind was, I am not as smart as I thought I was. Is that my cue? I realized I was not nearly as smart as I thought I was, because it took these guys 15 minutes to sniff out my plan, which I thought was brilliant going into that day. But the good news is they kept their word. They watched me. There were times I had to take them up on their offer to go see them if I just needed a break. There were a lot of times that I challenged them more than they supported me. I tried to push the envelope a little bit, but they were always there. They did what they said they were going to do. And because they did, I turned out all right, I think. I could say that if you were to ask any of them then, in their wildest dreams, think I'd be standing in front of you today, they think you're all nuts. But at the end of the story is that I was able to do this because I had people there that watched me and helped me do what it is that allowed me to be here. So it wasn't shortly after I got out of there that I realized, A, probably not going to play first base for the Yankees, so I got to have a backup plan. And I remembered these people and what they did for me and thought, you know what, if I can do that for someone else, that's not a bad way to make a living. So without boring you any longer, that's why I'm here. I know you've all had someone or something in your life that inspired you to be here. I want you to remember that. But I want to ask you all, why are you here? The reality is, I know why you're here. I know you're not here for the money. If you are, you can't count very well. But I know you're all here because you want to make a difference in a kid's life. So when I look out this room, I don't see hundreds of staff members of the Enfield Public School. I see people who chose to dedicate their lives to helping kids, just like the ones in my life that inspired me to do so. Now, these people in my life, they didn't help me because they had to. They weren't paid. There was no stipend for helping out the kid who lost his father. And if there was, they have one heck of a contract and don't get any ideas. They did it because they wanted to help a kid. So for this, I know that's why you're here, and I thank you. And I know we don't often say it enough, but we need to start. So I'm going to start today saying thank you. Thank you for why you guys want to be here. I'm going to ask something of all of you. Remember why you're here. I know your jobs get nuts. I know your life gets crazy. Later today, you're going to be in staff meetings. You're going to start working on your SLOs. You're going to start looking at benchmarks. These are all things that you have to do. I want you to take a moment and remember why you do it. But what I ask of you is not just to remember it today while we're all sitting in this room. I want you to remember it 2, 3, 4 months down the road. Next Tuesday is the easy day. Even the kids are looking forward to the first day of school. That's easy. But I'll ask you that same question the day before Christmas break, when kids are bouncing off ceilings. Take a step back. Remember why you're here. Remember why you're doing this. The thing that I'm going to miss the most about living over at Barnard is when my life got a little crazy, all I had to do was come out of my old office, which you're welcome, Siegel. It's got the best view in town. I would take a left out of my office and I would go walk around Barnard. And I always tried to look like I had a professional reason for being there. But the reality is I just heard something crazy and I needed to clear my head. I needed to remind myself why I'm doing this. So now that I don't live there anymore, I can tell Mrs. Mitchell and Mrs. Charette, as much as I enjoy coming to you, see your guys' class, I'd always pop my head into their classrooms just to say hello. I wasn't doing it there to spy on you guys. I was doing that for a very selfish reason, to clear my head, to say, remind myself why I'm here. I needed to keep the perspective. And all I ask of you as you walk out of here today, keep this in perspective as well. Last week, we met with our administrative council for the first time, and I asked them the same question. And I asked them if they can come up with a 10-word statement that signifies what we believe in and why we're here. And we spent about an hour debating different ideas, and they were all great ideas. But the one thing that I learned and just reinforced is that we are all trained to make things a heck of a lot more complicated than they need to be. think we try to insert all the latest buzzwords into whatever we have to do, when all we really need to do is take a step back and make things a little bit simpler. So I wanted us to create a statement that represents all of us. So when things get challenging, and they will, if you noticed, I didn't reference anything in today's program about a State of the Union. I didn't reference things that are happening at the federal level or things that are happening in the state level. I did that on purpose. See, I don't want to start the year off with any negative thoughts. I want this to be this. That's what today is about. Today is about positive. Today is about starting the year on the right note. But when we are challenged and people question what we do, whether it's teachers, administrators, paraprofessionals, clerical staff members, nurses, library aides, cafeteria workers, central office workers, I can hold up something that describes who we are. Now, as your superintendent, I will always defend what every one of you do, but it's a lot more effective if the rest of the community knows who we are and what we believe in, and we need to do a better job of that. So we came up with this after much debate. We make a difference in Enfield, every child, every day. And if you look closely, those are two kids who actually don't go to the Enfield Public Schools. Those are my kids. And I didn't put them up there because I'm just a proud dad, which I am. And I also didn't have a release to put anybody else's kids up on the screen. But more importantly, and Todd touched upon this, I put it up there as a reminder. You know, I got pictures of my kids all over the place, and I don't just put it up there because I'm proud of them. I put it up there because I look at it every day to remind me why I'm here. And I look at them, and I know you all do the same, that we all have to treat every kid in this district like they're our own. I know you do, but sometimes we need to be reminded to do that. So when you see pictures of my kids floating around my office, that's not just to brag, though I will. It's to remind me that I have to treat everyone's child as if they were my own and look at their best interest. To be honest, I also put them up here in case they go on YouTube and watch this later and I can embarrass them. So, but going back to the statement, I liked it. And I liked the statement for a couple of reasons. And the biggest one was the ambiguity of the word difference. You see, difference can mean a lot of different things to different people. Difference isn't just academic achievement. Difference isn't just helping a kid with their test scores. The difference is defined by the child. I know you all make a difference, and there are ways that none of us really see it. It could be that you knew a kid was going on a field trip and they didn't have enough money to go. So you put the money out of your own pocket in there so the kid can go on a field trip. That's a difference. That's making a difference in a kid's life. Some of you will notice that a kid was just having a bad day. So maybe you checked on him. Maybe you called home. Maybe you just put your arm around him and said, "Are you okay?" That's a difference. Some of you go to kids' games and activities and plays after school and on weekends, not because you have to, not because you're not getting paid for it. You do it because you know that simply showing up is going to mean a world to that kid. So I've seen it. I know you all do it. And it's incumbent upon all of us to do a better job of letting the community know all of the things that everybody in this room does. The statement isn't top-down, though. It can't be. This has to be something that all of us believe in. Now, I'm smart enough to know that if it took an hour with the administrative council to debate it, if I opened the floor to debate, we'd be here for about 6 weeks. So I'm not going to do that. I also mentioned earlier that had I thought of this concept a little bit earlier, I probably would have sent it all out and got your opinions in advance, but I told you I've only been on the job 60 days, so you got to bear with us. But what I'm going to ask of all of you is your opinion. See, later today, I'm going to send each and every one of you an email, and there's not going to be anything in the body of the email outside of that statement. And I want to know what you think. Won't take it personal if you don't like it. Tell us if we got it right. If we didn't get it right, I want to know. If you like it, let us know. If you didn't, I'm open to change. I think all of us are going to this with our eyes open that this has to be something that we all believe in. Because when times get tough, I want to stand this up and say, this is who we are. And that means all of us. So I'll ask for your patience. If you don't care and don't want to send it back to me, that's fine as well. It's not mandatory, Todd. I'm not making them do it. But I'm just giving that as an option for my own. Let's just clear that up now before you get to your meetings. But I do welcome and hope that you all share your opinions with me. So as we get ready to leave, I have to share with you the part of the day that actually gave me the most anxiety. And that was the music. And it has nothing at all to do with these. These guys actually helped get me through this more than you'll ever know. But the part that I struggled with was, I'm not real good at trying to pick a song at the right dramatic time, as to when to introduce them and do all that other stuff. I am not by any means good at that. Now, don't. I wish I was. And unfortunately, Dr. Schumann was a master at that, and I remind him on a daily basis, thanks for doing it. So that was the part that I struggled the most with. But as I met with Dr. Goodnight over the summer, and she shared with me the songs that the kids wanted to sing, not necessarily what we wanted to do, I realized that, once again, the kids got it right. And the last song they're going to do for us, the choice alone made me realize just how lucky we are. You know, I have to recognize that we all live in very challenging times. And in a day and age when just watching the evening news can be downright depressing, I remember and reflect on all the good that we see in our buildings every day. I remember why we're here. And I remember that you all continue to change lives of generations of students for this community. So, I thank you all for listening. I thank you for everything that you've already done. I'm going to thank you in advance for all that you're about to do for the children of Enfield. And I thank you and wish you all the best of luck to have a great school year. So, one last thing before I introduce our choir to sing us out. And thank you again for being patient. And I think we made it. We might be a little close. That was your fault with the applause, and time went longer than I planned. I want to share just a quick story about when I got a chance to meet these guys last week. And I came in to watch rehearsals last Friday, and like I said, the music was the part that I was having a hard time with. And as I walked in, they were rehearsing Born This Way, and I see all these kids like they were this morning, jumping and dancing all over the stage, and I thought, all right, I got one thing right. We're going to do that. Because just letting them not only share their talents with us, but the pure joy they had in doing it was the right thing. But one thing they did for me, besides making me not be so concerned about today, was even though I told them there was no way I was singing, they made me an honorary member of the choir. And I got my name on it to prove it. And they asked me if I would wear it today, and I said absolutely, and then Guy informed me, you got to wear a lapel mic, it's not going to work with a t-shirt on it. So as the choir sings us out, I'm going to take this microphone off, and I'm going to put my shirt on to thank these kids for letting me be a part of it. I thank you all, have a great year, and I welcome our choir back. Okay, thank you all again. Have a great year, and thank these kids one more time for me, please.